The Jake Asman Show will begin shortly. Thanks to all these great Patreon members who help support the show. Get your super chats ready. Jake will be here in just a moment. If you love the New York Jets, this is the place to be. And now, the Jake Asman Show.
There's been a lot of mystery surrounding Woody Johnson hiring the 3013 to assist the Jets with their GM and head coach search. A member of the 33rd team who will be heavily involved in the process, Rick Spielman, has shared what exactly he will be doing for the Jets. We'll talk about that with Jets insider Nick Faria. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Jake Asman Show. Let's hit it and get it started. Man.
Shout out to Jet fans that are still showing up. I don't know what sort of dysfunctional family they grew up in, but I feel like if you parents were two people that should have broke up but never did, you're tailor-made to be a Jets fan because it's a toxic relationship. The level of swag that Jet fans wear, you would think that they had like 4 or 5 Super Bowls.
We bleed Jets green each and every day. This is not the same old Jets. We have Aaron freaking Rodgers. We have Garrett Wilson. Let's go. We have Breece Hall. Please subscribe and hit the like button below. Super chat, baby. Cut the line. We have Sauce Gardner. We have Quinnen Williams. The Jets bandwagon is loaded. Now it's time to talk all things New York Jets. It's the Jake Asman Show.
Here we go, Jet fans. And of course, shout out to all the Asmaniacs for your continuous support. Reminder, if you want to join the Patreon, now's the best time to do it. You'll get discounts on all merch items. So if you want to buy some Jake Asman Show apparel for the holiday season, join the Patreon first. Get that discount code. Take advantage. Couple days left in November. We're going to update the list of names to all the Patreon users right when we get to the start of December. Head over to patreon.com/Jake Asman Show. Joining us right now in his weekly spot on the show is Jets beat reporter for Athlon Sports, Nick Faria. Nick, appreciate your time as always. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family.
Happy Thanksgiving, Jake. Great to be back on.
So we got a lot to get into. We'll certainly talk about the news of the last couple of days with the 3013 jumping on board. But yesterday, Aaron Rodgers was a guest on Pat McAfee in his weekly spot on that show, and he basically pushed back on most of what was written in those articles in The Athletic. After watching Rodgers' appearance on McAfee, what were some of your takeaways?
So it's interesting because to me, it wasn't just a response on The Athletic's reporting from last week. To me personally, I thought this was a comment and a response going back because Ian Rappaport had an article that came out essentially saying kind of the same thing. It was going to be a long shot to see Rodgers return to the team in 2025. This was a sort of declaration that every single media pundit out there is wrong with their assessment, that he still wants to be a New York Jet if he decides to show up for the 2025 season. It's very interesting overall because we can argue about the press having their own agenda. We can argue about Aaron Rodgers having his own agenda, but we won't know the end of this story, what is going to end up happening until the new GM is hired for the New York Jets. When that GM shows up and he gives his plan, if he wants Rodgers here or not, that's really going to determine exactly what happens moving forward. If Rodgers was right that it's the team that has to make this decision, if it's the executive side that said we wanted Rodgers back, but he didn't want to come back. So it's a lot of a wait and see game, finger pointing to this point, trying to get the leverage in these conversations more than anything else in this regard.
Would you agree that this idea that his future has already been decided is not necessarily true? I mean, there's still 6 games to go. There's a lot of things that could happen. One of them being, it feels unlikely, but let's just throw it out there. What if he looks pretty good down the stretch? And all of a sudden a new regime comes in. They're like, look, we assess the options out there. This guy's under contract. We think he gives us our best chance to win. And we'll look into drafting a quarterback that sits behind him. Like, I just think all these people running with, there's no way he's going to be a Jet next year. He's not going to be on this team. You might be right, but I don't think that decision's been made in late November.
No, it hasn't. And Adam Schefter, I think, was the first one that said, listen, a lot of things can happen in 6 weeks where if he starts to play better and the Jets start winning games, let's say they finish 7-10 again. Obviously outlandish thought overall because they have not proven they can go on a winning streak this year. But by and large, if a GM wants to come in and say, I want to draft a rookie quarterback, but I want to bridge quarterback in front of him to help sort of alleviate the stress, alleviate the pressure that could happen with the guy coming in as a first-round pick. Well, there aren't many bridge guys that would be better than Aaron Rodgers. And that includes Tyrod Taylor, who is expected to be under contract next season. So it makes a lot of sense for the Jets to simply say, we'll wait to see what the new GM wants, what the new head coach wants, and then we'll make that determination. But as of right now, especially after what he said on the Pat McAfee show, where he essentially made the point that he wants to stay with the Jets, we don't have an answer, and we're not going to have an answer until that hiring process is made.
Ultimately, while he has not been great, I do think some of the criticism has been way over the top. Like, I don't think Aaron Rodgers has been their biggest problem. In fact, and I've said this a lot, if they got last year's team with this version of Aaron Rodgers, to me, the Jets with that defense, the special teams, they would be a playoff team.
They would.
With that version of Aaron Rodgers. And look, I thought he'd play a little better. I think he's clearly banged up despite what he says. But like the idea that it's all on Rodgers, like you listen to some of these talk shows out there, some of these people out there acting as if the Jets are 3-8 only because of Aaron Rodgers, and they put no blame on the special team situation with Greg Zuerlein, the defense going from one of the best in the league to, since Robert Saleh has been fired, statistically one of the worst. Like, I'm not telling you Rodgers has been great, but I think people need to get a grip when we put all the problems on one guy, when this guy statistically is having the best quarterback season a Jet has had since 2015.
It's easy to point the finger at the quarterback and say, you're the only reason why this team is struggling. But at the end of the day, it's, Rodgers is part of the issue, but he's not the issue. Same thing as Robert Saleh was part of the issue, but he was not the issue. The struggles for the Jets, everyone has a part to play in it, including owner Woody Johnson. Joe Douglas had a part to play in it. You had the offensive line for a little bit of a stretch in the regular season that had a part to play with it. Sauce Gardner has a part to play with it. To sit here and say that it's one player or one coach, to me, is incredibly short-sighted, and it's really just trying to get a rise out of some fans on social media. At the end of the day, this is a team sport. It's not just Rodgers. It's not just the coaching staff. It's all of them collectively struggling in key moments every single game.
There's also the aspect of, well, I do think Rodgers might be their best option. Is he that much more of a better option than, let's say, Tyrod, who's under contract? Because then you start to consider, this is where a new GM comes in and makes this decision, the salary cap ramifications of keeping Rodgers an extra year, and whether or not it makes sense just to basically rip the Band-Aid off in one off season or spread out the $49 million dead cap over 2 years. If you keep him for one more year, that $49 million figure goes up to $63 million. You could spread it out over 2 years, but still, we're talking about a $40+ million dead cap hit in 2027. Even if you spread it out, that's a lot for a guy who might be done now. We don't know, but might not be anywhere close to what the Jets think they would get, even if they brought him back next year.
And that's why it comes back to the executive side. When the Jets hire a GM, whoever it is, they're going to have to make that decision on what they want to do with Aaron Rodgers. Now, we can argue about the better overall plan for the future. If you want to draft a quarterback this year, if you're going to have a top 5 pick and you somehow luck into whether it's Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, if you're going to sit here and say, well, they're going to draft a quarterback and they want him to develop, do you want him developing behind Tyrod Taylor? Or do you want him developing behind Aaron Rodgers? Or both in this instance? To me, I look at it as a way where you can compete in the 2025 season with Aaron Rodgers as your starting quarterback. I don't know if you can with Tyrod Taylor. Now, this isn't to say that Tyrod Taylor's a bad quarterback, but along with the New York Giants last season, he was a disaster. Couldn't throw the football when they needed to, and they just completely discombobulated around him. He also has injury concerns just as much, if not more, as Aaron Rodgers. So if you're trying to compete for a playoff spot in 2025, I don't know if Tyrod is the guy to do that with. I still think Rodgers gives you that best chance overall.
Hit the like button if you're tuning in. You're watching the Jake Asman Show. Thanks to Nick Faria for joining us in his weekly spot. So some news broke right before we signed on that Daniel Jones is signing with the Minnesota Vikings for the rest of the year. I wasn't going to bring it up because I don't really think it's relevant, but Omari super chatted this, so I'll address it. Jones to the Vikings, A-Rod running out of options. Look, I don't know what the future is for Aaron Rodgers, but I could promise you this. The idea that Daniel Jones signing on to be a backup for the rest of the year with the Vikings has any sort of impact on Rodgers, that's just not true. One has nothing to do with the other.
And the other thing is, of course, J.J. McCarthy, if he's 100%, he's probably going to take over as a starting quarterback for Minnesota next season anyway. He's sat a year. He's had that gruesome leg injury. Everyone's really upset about it because he showed promise during the preseason. But by and large, if you're looking at potential places for Rodgers to go to, I don't know if Minnesota was going to be the team. You look at a place like Las Vegas, who needs a quarterback who may not get into the top 5. You look at a team like the Tennessee Titans. Will Levis has started to pick up his play recently, but are they fully integrated with him as a starting quarterback? Those kind of places could certainly change things up and make things interesting. But by the end of the day, I don't know if Rodgers has a very large list of teams that are going to be interested in him. I never saw the Vikings as one of those teams, even though everyone wants to connect the dots because of Brett Favre.
The Viking situation for Daniel Jones is very similar to what Baker Mayfield did when he joined the Rams at the end of the season a few years back, and he parlayed that into an opportunity with Tampa, won the job, and now is their long-term starter seemingly down in Tampa. So Jones is basically – yeah, Jones is probably trying to do the same thing, right? Like join a winning program, learn from Kevin O'Connell, see if there's an opportunity for you to compete for a job somewhere next year. But you might start as a backup, but when you get that opportunity, like what Sam Darnold's now doing with the same team Jones is on, maybe you take full advantage. That's kind of where Daniel Jones is at. But that has nothing to do with Aaron Rodgers. Now, I do want to get into the GM search, and it's pretty cool that we have this sound to play here. So Rick Spielman, former general manager of the Minnesota Vikings, who was a part of the 33rd team, who Mike Tannenbaum brought on to his company to assist now with the Jets search for a GM and head coach. Spielman did this last year when he wasn't working with the 33rd team, just on his own. He assisted the Washington Commanders with their search for a GM and head coach. Spielman, on his podcast with CBS Sports yesterday, was asked by his co-host, okay, what exactly are you doing with the Jets? This is from the With the First Pick podcast on CBS Sports.
Yeah, no, I was asked to join the 33rd team on Mike Tannenbaum, which is another organization, to come in and help the Jets go through the process of hiring the next general manager and head coach. Very similar to what I did last year. A lot of information gathering, a lot of contacts that I do have, a lot of guys that I know. I've interviewed a lot of the guys already currently that are going to end up being on the list. I'll probably
previously interviewed them, you mean?
Yes, I either previously interviewed them last year or through the summer. I also work as one of the side gigs, talking to some of these up and coming general managers and head coaches. Just agents will reach out and ask me to spend an hour and a half with their clients, just so, one, I get to know them, and two, try to give them some feedback on how they interview. Plus, it keeps me in the loop, on all these new candidates coming in. And then you remember last May, I also had the privilege of working with the league office in their accelerator program. Got to meet 20 coaches that some are ready, some aren't ready to be head coaches in the league, but just ways to continue in this accelerator program to educate the next upcoming head coaches over the next, maybe not this year or next year, but down the road, they should be future head coaches, and got an opportunity to know a lot of those guys. So just being able to contribute, I would kind of put it as, Ryan Wilson, like this podcast. I'm just a scout in the corner. I will give my opinion. I will help with the interviews. I will talk to a lot of sources out there, collect a lot of information, give the information, and then let the owner of the Jets and the organization make the final decisions on who their next head coach and general manager will be. So basically, a little bit of an informational gatherer, a little bit of my opinion on how they interview, and then you kick all that information over, working with Mike Tannenbaum, and then the ownership and the higher ups or the decision makers will take that information and then take it from there.
Mike Tannenbaum, the former Jets GM who works in the media, runs the 33rd team. You work with him there. So you guys will be spearheading that together, it sounds like?
Yeah, he'll be the lead. They asked me to come in and assist on it, and probably with a little bit of my background in this area. I don't know if we'd call it an area of expertise, but I do have a little bit of knowledge of people and the process.
So my first reaction listening to all that is you can get on Woody Johnson for a lot of things, and rightfully so. Bringing in people to help him with these decisions is the right move, especially a guy in Rick Spielman who did this exact same thing last year. And I think what was notable there, Nick, he said a lot of the guys that he believes will be on the list for the Jets, he already knows and has already spoken to. So he gets a chance to see year over year how they improved in the interview process, how their stock either went up or went down. He's got intimate knowledge on the right people to talk to. I don't know how anyone could be upset with the idea of bringing in Tannenbaum and Spielman to assist with this process.
There are some analysts out there who believe that this is a different situation like the Washington Commanders, where Washington brought in a new ownership group, and because they were inexperienced on how to build those connections with coaches and general managers, that they hired that independent consultant firm to be able to help them out in that process. And it's embarrassing that Woody Johnson has to do that. But I counter with a very simple thought. The Jets haven't gotten the general manager or head coach hire right in 14 years. It's been 14 years of struggles to find the right people to run this team. Now, Woody Johnson, a big sort of criticism that he's had to face is the fact that he has non-football people giving him football opinions. This is the exact opposite. They need to get the head coach and general manager right immediately. The only way to do that is by finding the right people. Woody Johnson understands that that's not a strength of his. So he says, I'm going to get help. I'm going to bring in people who have great connections around the league and get them in the building to have these kind of conversations. This was a no-brainer, excellent move for the Jets franchise. I said it on my show on Monday. This is the first sign Jet fans have where there is a light at the end of the tunnel in months. This dysfunction, finger pointing in the locker room and executiveship, the fact they were able to bring in a consulting firm to help them, and that consulting firm is led by former executives more than anything else, is so important to fix this thing for the Jets because they need to get these people right. They need to bring in football people who understand how to turn around an organization. Spielman has done it. Tannenbaum was solid at it. You're bringing in football guys to help with football decisions. There is no single point you can make that shows this is a bad idea.
Well, people can't have it both ways. You can't rip on Woody Johnson for not listening to his football people and then criticize him for bringing in football people to advise him on this decision. Ultimately, Woody's got to pick who he wants as his coach and GM, but you just want him to be loaded up with the most amount of information possible. And this is a way to do it.
It's and again, you said it perfectly. I wrote an article about it. I think I started with the exact same sentence. You cannot have it both ways. You can't push Woody Johnson to go out and find football people to help him with these decisions, but then get angry when he does exactly that. He understands the limitations of his job. He understands the struggles he's had. So instead of him just doing this all over again, he is going and saying, I've struggled with this. Let me get help. That should be commended by everybody.
I mean, I see this tweet the other day from Mike Faria, and it's a joke. It's just classic. Anything the Jets do, let's criticize them for it. I mean, we're going to rip the Jets for bringing in help because Woody's been around for 25 years. You're the same person ripping Woody Johnson for meddling and getting rid of his head coach and stepping in and making reportedly personnel moves for Joe Douglas. Like, give me a break. Josh Harris did the smart thing, understanding that he's a new owner who's not a football guy, so he brought in advisors to assist him with the process. Woody Johnson's doing the same thing. That's what you're supposed to do. No one should expect Woody Johnson to be an expert on what a good GM and coach looks like. That's not his role. His role is to hire the right people, spend money when it's required, and stay out of the way. This is the first step to doing that, hopefully.
And the other part of that is, you made the point. Okay, Woody Johnson's been here for 25 years. He hasn't gotten the hirings right. If he got the hirings right, you don't have to worry about hiring an independent consultant firm. But at the end of the day, he hasn't. So him understanding that and trying to get help for that should be something that people look and say, okay, well, maybe he's finally learning his lesson. That's a positive side to this coin. So I don't look at this move anything other than the team is making major improvements to the structure of their roster. The other thing that I've heard that I think really needs to be shut down is this. I've seen it so many times with Jet fans, because you have the team president, Jaime, who by all accounts is a solid president, but everyone wants him out of football decisions. And from what I've heard, he's not making football decisions because the president of an NFL team does not handle that. When you are making football decisions, it's the general manager first, then the head coach, then everything else. The president has nothing to do with this situation. All his job is to make sure the revenue continues to increase and everything is in line. That is the only process overall. So kind of a side point to this, but I wanted to bring it up because his name continues to be tied into these sort of discussions. But Jaime has nothing to do with this. And I think we need to recognize that the Jets structure is just finding the right GM, not finding the right president too.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, like, you get the right people in charge, you could turn your franchise around, as we've seen time and time again. Like, that's where we're at with this Jets team. Like, you want things to be turned around, you got to get the right people in charge, and they just have not had the right people in charge. And the one thing about Tannenbaum that I like, he's done the job in this market before. There is a difference, and Nick, you could attest to this because you work in this media market. There is a difference in being the general manager of the Seattle Seahawks versus being the general manager of the New York Jets. There is a different type of spotlight, a different type of pressure that is on you, especially now, even more so than when Tannenbaum was here, because of the lack of success since Tannenbaum has been the general manager. So you need to not only find someone that's qualified for the job, but someone that has the right temperament to handle the New York market, the pressure from media and fans, the fact that eventually this team is going to be drafting another quarterback in the first round, and that decision will likely define the tenure of that general manager. That's why these jobs are so hard. That's why winning in New York is so hard, because of all the extra that comes with it. You don't have that extra in Seattle. You don't have that extra in Minnesota. You don't. Trust me. I lived and worked in Houston, the fourth biggest city in the country, for 6 years. I did an afternoon drive down there on ESPN Houston. The scrutiny and pressure in Houston, which is a major market compared to New York, is light years less than what it is here. That's the reality.
The only comparison I have really to this point where every move and every conversation had is sort of critiqued is in Philadelphia, and it's only with the Eagles. The Phillies, the Flyers, the 76ers, they're nowhere near this level of pressure and scrutiny. I think it's only the Eagles that have and carry this type of thing. And it goes back to Jet fans being passionate. They're sick and tired of 14 years of losing, of postseasonless football, the last 8 years of not being able to finish above 500, just incompetence all around. And that's why I look and say, okay, you want to make sure you get the right guy, but that's where Woody bringing in these consultants is so important, because he hasn't gotten it right. He hasn't been able to find the guy, the head coach, the general manager. But the fact that he's willing to get help from it tells me, and should tell Jet fans, that yes, he has really struggled recently. But at the end of the day, he's willing to get help.
Some injury updates here from the Jets. Jeff Ulbrich speaking right now as the Jets get ready for Seattle on Sunday. Jeff Ulbrich says Breece Hall won't practice today because of a knee issue. Says Hall hurt it versus the Colts but finished the game. Hopeful he'll play Sunday. Left tackle Tyron Smith dealing with the neck injury, still being evaluated. Ulbrich said he could be an IR candidate. You do wonder, if Tyron Smith goes on IR, is that it for his career?
Yeah, I think it would be. No one really wanted to sign him in free agency except for the Jets. That's why the Jets got him so cheap. I don't think there's anything on tape this year to show that he's got anything left. I think this is it for Tyron Smith.
I'll say this too. If Breece is banged up, don't play him. You know what I mean?
Well, listen, it's a blessing in disguise, really, because the Jets are going nowhere this year. But this is a perfect opportunity to see some of these young players get more playing time for Malachi Corley, get more playing time for Braylon Allen, keep Breece Hall fresh for when these games actually matter, whether it's 2025 or 2026. See some of this younger talent, let this younger talent develop, and just let them play and make these mistakes. Just because they struggle now doesn't mean that confidence is going to be shot going into 2025, because this is the time to make these mistakes. This team's going nowhere. We all understand that. If Olu Fashanu gets beat for a sack, that's not going to end the Jets' hopes for 2025. It just is going to allow him to look at the tape and say, this is where I need to get better. This is sort of the time of year now where, because they are not going to be competing for a playoff spot, you want to see as many young players as you possibly can, whether that means tanking, whether it means losing down the stretch consistently to get a top pick, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. But Braylon Allen, Malachi Corley, they should be getting a lot more targets coming up in the next few weeks.
Comments, questions, super chats, they will cut the line. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Buffalo Soldier writes in, Rodgers is not the only problem. Yes, it is. One of the worst behavior for a future Hall of Famer. Disgusting. Ladies and gentlemen, today's moron of the day is Buffalo Soldier. See you later.
Now look what you've done. No more protection from the Asmaniacs. Had to pull you out of the chat and cast you down with the sodomites. Some time in here will feel like you've been run over by the lane train. You understand me? You catch my drift? Give them another 24 hours to think about it.
But thank you for the subway ride later, Buffalo Soldier. I'll gladly take your blood money, your $5, moron. I also wanted to hit on this. So good job by Boy Green coming up with this list here. So Spielman in that podcast, he mentioned that several of the GM/head coaching candidates they interviewed for the Commanders jobs last year would be on the list for the Jets jobs. So here were some of the names that they spoke to last year in Washington. Ian Cunningham, Bears assistant GM. I'll do the GMs first, then we'll get to the coaches. Glenn Cook, Browns assistant GM. Alec Hallaby, Eagles assistant GM. Will McClay, Cowboys vice president of player personnel. Nick, your thoughts on that list? We know you're an Eagles guy, so can you tell us about Hallaby first?
Yeah, so Hallaby is more of an analytical guy. He came from the analytics side first, but he's really, since he's been promoted, has gotten into the scouting world. He is what many people say is I don't want to say he's the second coming of Howie, but he has been essentially preaching at the Roseman altar for a very long time now. So this may be a chance for him to finally get his bearings as a GM. I think it may be another year or two, but those names are fantastic. Listen, if the Jets somehow can get Will McClay out of Dallas, run up the check if you need to. That's a fantastic hire. He has been fantastic with Dallas for the better part of the last decade. Really isn't close. But the problem is he doesn't want to leave Dallas. He is very well protected under Jerry Jones, and he's essentially the number 2 guy outside of the Jones family to make roster decisions. So if McClay is somehow available, you absolutely try to get him in here. Outside of that, there are plenty of other names. Cunningham's another good one. I look at Brandon Brown with the New York Giants. He's another guy. Cunningham and Brown kind of left at the same time in Philadelphia, but both are pretty strong candidates overall. So I look, there's a lot of different options out there. There are a lot of young options out there to grow this team. So whatever the Jets are going to end up deciding with this consulting firm, I think it's going to be a pretty solid hire.
The coaches that the Commanders spoke with last year, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, Anthony Weaver, Bobby Slowick. Ben Johnson, of course, the Lions OC. Aaron Glenn, the Lions DC, former Jet, of course. Anthony Weaver, Dolphins DC. Bobby Slowick, Texans OC. We know the Commanders ultimately hired Dan Quinn for that job, and they first hired Adam Peters, who was the assistant GM in San Francisco under John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. What do you make of those coaches there? I would say the stock on Slowick is lower this time around than last year for sure. Weaver, I don't know enough about him as a DC to weigh in. I was in Houston when he was there on Bill O'Brien's staff, and he was the DC the last year. O'Brien was there, and the Texans were bad, and that was a mess, so I don't really put a ton of that on him. And then the top 2 guys, I mean, I would imagine Ben Johnson might be the number 1 overall candidate during this cycle, and Aaron Glenn certainly going to get some consideration too.
Yeah, so listen, that's just a small picture of coaches that the Jets could really be looking at, because there's a lot of other different names that you can consider. Personally, you look at a guy like Agnew, the assistant GM with Detroit. if he's able to bring in Ben Johnson, if the Jets were to hire Agnew because of the familial connections already in the building, you bring in Ben Johnson, you somehow get Ben Johnson to come to New York, that would make a lot of sense. Even though it is very, very, very unlikely overall, because Johnson's going to essentially handpick the team he wants to go to. There are plenty of other assistant coaches. Joe Brady of the Buffalo Bills has done a great job with Josh Allen in that offense. You look at Kellen Moore's another name that you can potentially look at, his development with Philadelphia's offense. There's going to be plenty of guys that the Jets are going to want to talk to think about. And really, the idea that the Jets need to make these hires quickly, I completely disagree with that. Just because you made the best hiring of a cycle does not mean it's going to magically turn around. Sometimes it's the least popular picks that end up being the best coaches of any cycle. I just let it be patient, let it play itself out. I think the Jets can get a good coach regardless.
Hit the like button if you're tuning in. Comments, questions, super chats. Cut the line. J-Quest writes in, I had Applebee's last night, paying the price this morning. Nick, your thoughts?
Listen, it happens. What you got to do, it's always a secret. You're going to go to half apps, everything. You got to have a water right before you leave. When that happens, you're smooth sailing the rest of the day. I'm probably going to Applebee's later tonight. Exactly that reason. You get a water, you're going to be feeling better in the morning.
Wow. Thanksgiving Eve at Club B's?
Absolutely. Listen, you're talking to the guy that's essentially grown up on Applebee's. It's just, it's my go-to place. Always has, always will be. You can't knock it down for me.
Love that. Love that. Respect that. Tremendous. Boomtown writes in, for those worried about the 33rd team and Tannenbaum had an input, remember that they are new and highly motivated to make the correct recommendations. They can't lay an egg and lose credibility.
Yeah, listen, and this Boomtown's absolutely correct. They have just as much to lose as a consulting firm if they do not figure this hiring process out as the Jets do. Woody Johnson coming out and getting advice from former executives makes perfect sense because he hasn't gotten the hiring process right, and he needs to. So if he struggled with it, get help from people that know how to find young, energetic talent for a front office. That's exactly what he did. I completely agree with this.
Comments, questions, super chats, cut the line. We're seeking channel memberships as well. I do want to plug this. I'll be on ESPN New York, special Black Friday show from 6:30 to 9 p.m. So if your wife or your significant other is dragging you out of the house on Black Friday, forcing you to go somewhere to shop, put on your radio in the car at 8:80 a.m. or listen on the ESPN New York app. I will be on this Friday, and I'll be on Sunday, 4 to 5:30, leading into a Knicks game, and then we'll do the Jets-Seahawks postgame show on this YouTube channel right at 5:30 when I get off the air. So put on the radio at 4 on Sunday, right after Jets-Seahawks. Listen to me on the radio till 5:30, and then get to YouTube, and we'll go live for our usual postgame show. Let's see. Danny wrote in, Eric Bieniemy was a finalist for Washington also. I don't know if he was a finalist. I know he got an interview, but he was already in-house last year. They gave him an interview.
Yeah.
And he was their OC a year ago under Ron Rivera. So he was never close to getting that job, though.
Again, Bieniemy's name is going to be brought up a lot. I don't ever see him getting head coaching job. From what I've heard from people that I've talked to, his interviews have not been very good. He's got some baggage as well from his playing days and from back in years past. I don't see it happening. He wants total control, and the way NFL teams are built now, they do not give total control like they did to people like Bill Belichick or Andy Reid or these guys anymore. That just doesn't happen.
This comment here is from Mo, who writes in, what about grabbing Brian Gain from the Bills? So Gain got railroaded in Houston. He got 1 year and then got ran out of there. You have no idea what he is as a GM. That was not his fault. That was a terrible situation with O'Brien being power hungry, Jack Easterby having way too much say for a former character coach. I lived that situation in Houston. Gain's highly respected around the league. He also has Jet ties. He's a New Jersey guy. So I do think he'll get an interview. That'd be interesting. If you want someone with experience, it's only a year of experience as a GM, but he knows this market. He knows what it's like to actually be a GM. And he comes from a very successful franchise, obviously, in the division with Buffalo.
So, again, you want to have GM, the head coach, that relationship to be in lockstep. Brian Gain comes in. Joe Brady comes in as well as the head coach. That's something that could certainly be in conversations. Agnew and Ben Johnson. You want this relationship to be perfect for the long term where, guys, these two are working together to find the right pieces. Gain makes a lot of sense because if he brings in Joe Brady, the Jets have arguably one of the brightest young minds in the NFL now running their offense. That's a really, really interesting hire and one that makes a lot of sense.
So Gain played for the Jets and the Giants on their practice squad in 96, 97. He was with the Chiefs in 98. So he never had a great pro career, but he's from Pearl River, New York. He went to Don Bosco Prep. He was a scout for the Jets under Parcells from 99 until 2004. He had bounced around the league a bunch, but he followed Parcells to the Cowboys in 2005. He was with Miami. Tannenbaum knows him. He's been in football a very long time, knows the area. He, to me, is a candidate to watch for this job.
I agree. And again, it's that connection. He's got the New York ties. He understands this industry. He understands the market. On top of that, he can bring in Joe Brady. And you need to get this coaching staff right. It's not just the executive that needs to be hired this year. You have to get the head coaching right. And to me, Brady has to be at the top of the list. You look at a guy, another connection that you could possibly turn to. Look in Baltimore. Horowitz, the assistant GM, potentially bring in Todd Monken. That's another duo that can come in and really help the Jets. Monken's a popular name for a lot of Jet fans because of his prior experience here. That's another one that would make a hell of a lot of sense because he knows how to develop quarterbacks better than anyone.
Do you hear that music, Nick?
No, I don't think I do.
What if I told you it's not music, but a Charles Gorman burp?
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I burped.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's how we celebrate a 5-spot of channel memberships from the great Rick Kent, Jesus, Michelle, NY Jets 8, La Greatness, Goody, Johnny Boy, 328. You are all channel members. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Rick, you're the man. Thanks for the support. Really appreciate you always paying it forward for your fellow Asmaniacs. J-Quest says, oh, bleep, I lost my membership. Well, you still don't have one, J-Quest, because guess what? The algorithm might hate you. Ray Jr. writes in, wouldn't mind having Rex as a DC. Not sure if he would be cool with not being the lead guy. I think Rex would be willing to be a DC for a different organization. He's interviewed the last 2 years for a DC job with Sean Payton. Last year, the DC job with the Cowboys. But he would never be the DC of the Jets. He'd be like, why would I be the DC? You guys haven't had any success since I was here as the head coach. I'm not being a defensive coordinator.
And the other piece is from people that I heard to in Denver when he interviewed for that job, he was never seriously considered. Outside of him potentially being hired by the Jets, and again, I think that would be one of the craziest things I've ever seen in football. I don't think he's ever getting a coaching job again. I don't think any team wants to deal with that.
Danny B says, what do you think about Cliff Kingsbury for head coach? Experience, second time around, you buying into it? Nope, not at all. And you're seeing why here in Washington. In Arizona, when he was the head coach, his teams would usually start fast. The offensive numbers would be really, really solid, but then they would just completely collapse down the stretch. You're seeing that now with the Commanders. They started really, really well. The young quarterback was developing at a high rate, but now all of a sudden, plateau. That absolute struggle. They've lost to the Steelers, Dallas, Philadelphia. Pittsburgh and Philly's defenses are great. Dallas defense, not so much. To me, I think you stay away from Kingsbury as much as possible. He's not my number one, but I do like the fact that, one, he's offensive minded and he does have experience. He did go to the playoffs in Arizona one year, so it wasn't a complete failure.
They were crawling to the playoff. That's the thing. Like, it wasn't like, oh, they were an emphatic playoff team. They were really struggling down the stretch, and then they got blown out in that first playoff. Like, I don't see them as a team that I don't see the Jets as a team that should be considering Kingsbury. That just screams another Adam Gase to me.
This one is from J-Quest, who wants to know, Nick, thoughts on Brian Flores as head coach with Dable as OC and Bobby Bindite as the DC?
So listen, I know Flores is a popular name. I wouldn't do it, mostly because you want to have the head coach have a great relationship with the young quarterback. The experiences with Tua and Flores back in Miami, that is going to hurt him in any head coaching job that he's going to try to get. Dable as an OC makes a lot of sense. I know the Giants have really struggled, but to me, that is more about the players that Joe Schoen has put around Dable as it has more than anything he's done as a play caller. But again, Flores, you want your head coach to be able to develop quarterbacks. because you want him to be the guy that keeps the offensive system intact. It's just not something that I see right now. And again, Flores, Vrabel, they're really good leaders. No one's denying it. They're good defensive minds, but can they develop the quarterback position? We have not seen that.
We're presented today by Huga House. Get yourself a brand new hat that every athlete and celebrity is rocking. Promo code Asman, HugaHouse.com, 15% off. Buy one hat from Huga House. Second hat is 30% off. They just released winter hats as well. So if you want a winter style hat, a beanie for the holiday season, HugaHouse.com, promo code Asman at checkout. And I promise you, you'll save at least 15% with the first hat and 30% with your second hat. Check it out, HUEGAHouse.com. Use that promo code if you're getting a hat. We'll get to your calls coming up here momentarily. Comments, questions, super chats, those will continue to cut the line around here. This comment was from Dan, who says, Green Bean for GM, Jeremy Jets Chaos Assistant GM, Fialco OC, Rob from Glenhead, DC, Bonesy, Rodgers Ass Kisser, and Peter Castro Head Coach, Nick Faria, President of Football Operation, Jake Media Cons. I guess he means communications. Nick, your thoughts on being the president of football ops?
Well, again, this is part of my reasoning of why I don't think people really understand how the hiring process works for. You don't hire a president of football operations and then hire a GM. The GM is promoted to VP of football operations after some time of success. You don't have a guy circumventing the general manager, because that just causes friction. It causes disorganization, dysfunction, all those different things. So you want to get the GM to become the VP of football ops, not the other way around. But I would gladly take it. Listen, if that's, I'll take a raise in pay. That's fine.
Yeah, and I mean, why not? I mean, it's money. Money talks, baby.
Give it. Let's go.
Let's get to your calls right now on the Gusbuster hotline. Yesterday, we had our first ever segment on the show called Cooking with Vman. That was a huge hit. Let's check in right now with Vman. Ladies and gentlemen, Vman.
It's time for another Vman call. Hopefully he no sleeping. Adios mio.
Hey Jake, what's up? And I don't know if you thought that was just bizarre.
I thought it was magical, Nick. V-Man.
Just on talking with the third team, I agree that they're gonna put their best effort into getting this hire, right? Because of course this represents them. This represents their company, their consulting company. So like you got to get this hire right for them if they want, because obviously you're gonna get hired in the future based on the success of what you're going to do right now with the Jets. So it's imperative for them to, put their best effort into making this hiring work out.
I would agree. I mean, if they do a good job on this, they'll have plenty of other teams lining up to hire them.
Exactly. So with that, and I never thought about that hiring from Buffalo. That's an interesting hire, especially isn't Allen still in the MVP race right now? Like, who are the top two MVP candidates right now?
Probably Josh Allen and Saquon Barkley would be 1 and 2 in the betting odds.
But I'd say so. It's like I said, so if you get Allen to win MVP, that would obviously be that's going to do a lot for your stock. They'll do a lot for Joe Brady's stock in the head coaching rankings, in the future head coaching rankings. So, obviously, if you can get Allen to be able to boost his stock and make him a much more hotter commodity. So we'll have to see. And, obviously, it never hurts to pick from your rivals and weaken them.
Well, Joe Brady, I think will get a lot of consideration this hiring cycle. I think he'll get a bunch of interviews.
It'll be interesting. Ben Johnson's we'll have to see. We got to hope for the best. And, got us. With the Rodgers stuff, you're right. It depends on the GM. It depends on what he does these final few games. Is he going to do much? I don't know, but we have to wait and see. And we're going to have to make it through the final stretch of the season. It's going to be kicking, dragging, and screaming because it's going to be just miserable football most likely. And we just got to hope that they finally get it right this offseason. That's all we can do.
Vman, what are you cooking today? Nick is dying to know.
I'm not cooking anything.
That's it? We're done?
I seasoned it. It doesn't get, it takes a couple days to, it's got to sit for a couple days in its seasoning before it actually cooks.
I see. Now, give us an idea on what exactly happens at the Vman Thanksgiving festivities. What time do you guys start eating?
Well, I don't know what we're going to do because we don't really do it for most of my life. I went to my cousin's house in Massachusetts. Then, things have changed, Right now, my grandfather's basically a nursing home. And, so we're going to bring him some food because he doesn't like turkey. So bring him food, he'll eat, and then we'll probably, me and my mom and my sister will probably just eat here. Because like I said, my family's gone. They're all, so, like my uncle's gone, my grandmother's gone. I don't really talk much with my other uncle, There's really no one to have Thanksgiving with. It's just me, my mom, and my sister.
Well, V-Man, I'd have Thanksgiving with you.
All right, well, I better get going because I still got some things I got to do around here.
No, you're not interested in that? Jeez.
Sorry, I couldn't hear it. It glitched out. It glitched out on my end while you were talking.
Oh, I said I'd have Thanksgiving with you.
That's nice, but I gotta finish writing this shopping list for my mom. She had a brain fart, and she literally wrote this.
I cannot see whatever you just showed. It was cut off. Unbuttered salt.
She had a brain fart, and she just wrote that, trying to write unsalted butter.
Unsalted butter.
Yeah, she had a brain fart. It just made me laugh my ass off.
V-Man, never change, all right?
All right, bye.
That's the end of that V-Man call. Now he can go back to sleeping.
I think the best part of that call was Nick trying not to laugh.
Well, you did the whole, this thing. I'm like, oh, my God. The minute you went like this, I was
that's what he did. He did this first.
I was an absolute goner.
V-Man, you're one of the greats.
Listen, I'm not. I see people in the comments thinking I'm laughing at V-Man's deceased relatives. I wasn't. I saw this, and I just started dying.
For those who didn't see the second show yesterday, go back and watch V-Man cook for 900 people watching live. It was spectacular. David super chatted us. He says, awake V-Man doesn't hit the same. I disagree. V-Man was locked in yesterday as he was doing what he does best, apparently, getting ready for a Thanksgiving feast. Anyway, more of your calls right now. Let's say hello to Kyle Clifton. What's up, Kyle?
Hey, guys. So they say that putting unsalted butter into your black coffee in the morning is a way to kickstart your metabolism. So maybe that's what V-Mom is looking for.
Makes sense.
I've never tried that. I can't get my wife to buy the unsalted butter. But I'm a little confused by the process as it was kind of laid out by Spielman. I get the fact that Tannenbaum and he are going to sit on these interviews with the GM. Presumably the GM is going to have a list of coaching candidates that they would like to work with. So the Jets go through the process, they hire a GM. Presumably, they're going to be head coaching interviews with that GM.
Yep.
And I'm wondering what the consulting firm does at that point. Do they kind of recede into the background? Do they sit on those head coaching meetings?
That's exactly what would happen. It would essentially, the goal right now, the first thing you need to do is get the GM right. You get the guy in the building with that plan. Then the GM is going to start, like you said, with his list of candidates for the head coach and say, I want these guys. Let's get these interviews. Now, the consulting firm may offer a couple of more head coaches. They also are going to be in a position to sort of bring those guys in. This just brings in extra credibility on the head coaching side where it's okay. We're trying to get the right guy to pair with our GM. The GM wants you come in for an interview. Let's see how good of a fit you would be.
So to me, that makes the first GM kind of the first interactions with the team for the new GM kind of awkward to have these consultants kind of looking over his shoulder. That's just how I feel about it. I note that the last time that they used the consulting firm Korn Ferry, that they only used it to hire a GM, and I think it was McCagnon back in 2012. Does that sound right?
No, Korn Ferry got them Izzik. They used Casserly and Wolf to get McCagnon and Wolf.
Okay, all right.
I don't think it's awkward though. They're in the
either.
interview process, and like they could provide feedback. Because like think about it, the interview process, you're already going to have the head of the business operation in there. Jaime Elhine, whatever the guy's name is, the president of the business side, is going to be in there. Your entire organization sits in these interviews. That's how it works. I'd rather guys that have done the job be in there who know what questions to ask prospective candidates.
I agree.
My one fear is 4 or 5 years down the road, we're going to be saying again, this GM hired this coach, and we're going to have maybe some reservations that maybe they were gun shy about actually hiring their guy because of who may or may not have been in the room. That's a
lot of people, a lot of teams have consulting firms for their head coaching hires. This is not some new thing. When a GM is hired, so like for the Giants, for example, they brought in different people when they were talking to Joe Shane when he first hired. Then they had those people involved in those discussions, but by and large, the favorite was Brian Daboll. And the question was, would Daboll want to work with Joe Shane? They ended up doing it. It hasn't worked, for the most part, but that was the process for the Giants. I see something very similar happening there.
All right. Good discussion. It's kind of good to kind of talk through it, and we'll see how it plays out. Thanks, guys.
Kyle, appreciate it. I say Kyle Clifton should be involved in the search process too.
Listen, there's going to be people that are scared, concerned, frustrated, but at the end of the day, you want to get this coaching hiring right. If that means having more people involved in the discussion to figure out who the best people are, I think that's just better for the organization.
Hit the like button if you're just tuning in. A couple minutes left with Nick Faria. So if you have a comment or question that you want Nick to answer, super chat it in. That is the best way to get it on the show. Hamburger, he's up next on the Gusbuster Hotline. What's up, Hamburger?
Good morning, everybody. How we doing today?
Hamburger.
So, I couldn't agree with you more, Nick, about having more people. The more people around this decision-making, the better. Of course, as long as it's the right minds. But, I'm excited for this chapter. I'm excited to see what these guys do. I really am. I'm excited to see the candidates they bring in and who we get as a GM. A question I have for you, do you feel like this Rex, the Rex Ryan, the Mangini, the Gruden, do you think that's all kind of like mostly media driven, or do you think there's any real shot at it? I mean, the Rex, for me, I feel like he put himself in that spotlight, being able to be on the TV and being able to promote himself like that to create that narrative. Do you think Woody's really considering these things, or is this just mostly like a media driven?
I think it's more medium driven than anything else. Again, I'm not saying it can't happen.
Right.
I'm not saying, any of those things like he's a bad head coach or anything. I'm just saying he hasn't had a head coaching hire in close to a decade. He hasn't been a coordinator in a very long time. And he's just been on television. Now, there have been television people who have been hired right off the bat, but that's more for executive roles, not for head coaching roles. And to me, if I'm looking at who I want as the next Jets head coach, if this is a can't miss thing, you cannot go through another rebuild with another head coaching hire. I'm not hiring the guy that has always had a penchant for bringing more media spotlight to his team. The Jets need to cool off and just sort of build this the right way, not bringing in loudmouth people to say, this is changing. I'm not going to kiss the rings here today.
I would agree.
Win first, then talk.
And with that being said, since if you were to bring in a guy like Rex or somebody like that, you're really only looking at like a two-year stint with him. You know what I mean? So to me, that doesn't make any sense on
he was here for 6 last time. It would depend how the team does.
I know, but I don't know. I'm glad that you feel that way, Nick, me personally, I don't want to go the old route. I understand, yes, Robbie kind of called me out at having Tannenbaum, but I think Tannenbaum is a different situation. He's only looking for a GM, and he's working with Spielman. And I think
He's not the
Spielman
GM.
brings.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
He's not the GM. He's just trying to help find the right one. That's a completely different scenario.
Correct. And if you told me Mancini was coming in to sit in for that too, I'd be okay with that, as long as he didn't have, his hands inside the organization making picks and deciding the coach. I'm excited to see what happens with this. So I thank you for your perspective.
Again, this isn't to say that everything's going to be magically fixed. That's not what I'm saying. But this is the first sign of a light at the end of the tunnel saying, okay, we have a process to get the right guys in place. Then you have to hope that that process continues moving forward. So I agree. This is not the end all be all. This isn't everything's magically fixed. This is the first step to getting it right.
Yeah. Listen, I'm willing at this point now. I'm so, this season was such a terrible, 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 terrible thing that I'm willing to just sit back and hopefully this team can do it right and be patient, because we have nothing else, man. We can't go for this rat race all the time. I just really want this organization to be solid top to bottom and enjoy some winning seasons back to back to back. Not just, we haven't won anything.
It can't be a one-year thing. It's got to be, you want to build a consistent winner. You don't build a consistent winner with a guy that's going to be here for 3 years, excuse me.
I thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
We thank you for your service. Yeah, I mean, look, ultimately, the only way this gets turned around, as we've been saying, is right GM, right coach are aligned, and they make the right decisions. And until that happens, they'll continue to be in this abyss, even with a pretty talented roster, but a poorly coached team that's 3-8 somehow, which is unreal.
No, listen, that's what it is. You want to get this hiring right. 3-8's not going to cut it, but you bring in people with experience, football people. Everyone was complaining that Woody Johnson's listening too much to non-football people. This is the exact opposite of that. People should be happy about this current situation.
Ladies and gentlemen, 2 super chats here that I want to address. First one's from Barney, who suggests Vman's mom for general manager. V-mom for GM. I'll listen. And Barney's got a question for Nick. He goes, is Nick worried at all about a conflict of interest if it looks like the 33rd's media wing is influencing the consulting wing that might scare candidates?
So this is a great question. And let's break this down. First off, there are 2 sides to the 33rd team's business model. There is the content media side, which put out the article of 5 potential GM candidates that the Jets should be considering. They put that down immediately when the Jets hired the consulting firm. The consulting firm has nothing to do with the content side. The consulting firm is just being hired by certain teams and organizations to help their business model, finding the right guys to build their teams around. It is completely different. It is completely to the side of it. All I'm saying is, if you're worried about the media side, do not. It's not the same thing. It has nothing to do with it. It is quite literally a completely different entity in the company. So it's not a conflict of interest. It's not going to be a problem. It's not going to scare anyone because, again, they are just trying to provide names that make sense for Woody Johnson to move forward with. That is all. They're not the ones hiring. They're not the ones writing the contracts out. They are quite literally saying, candidate A, candidate B, and candidate C would be best for your franchise. Let me help you with some of the questions that you should be asking. That's it. Woody Johnson's going to make the ultimate decision here, but it's not based off the media team. They are 2 totally separate pieces under the same organization.
Well said, Nick. Well said. Let's see. Last chance to get in here. Let's see. Rick Kent says, gotta go. Have a great Thanksgiving. Rick, you have a great Thanksgiving, all right? Not a good Thanksgiving, a great Thanksgiving, in fact.
Listen, if you want a Thanksgiving hot take, I've said this before, I've said this all week. Prime rib over turkey. People have to start doing that because it is ridiculous that we have to hurt ourselves by essentially eating dry bird, even chicken. Chicken's fine, but overall, turkey is mostly dry. Get some food that you will actually enjoy with your family. Put a prime rib in the oven, cook it up, and you actually will enjoy yourself. So what if you have to do it on Christmas as well? Prime rib is freaking good, man.
Well said. I'm having steak tomorrow, so I agree. I think turkey
my
is so
cat
overrated. The Pilgrims just didn't know any better.
Yeah, they had no idea.
If they had steak available to them, they would have done that. They didn't know.
Kill the cow, put the prime rib on the oven.
Mm-hmm. I agree. This comment here is from Cole. He goes, Nick just said Woody's still making the final decision. We're screwed. Yeah, man. He owns the team. That's how this works.
Hold on. You're completely glossing over the first part of this. Woody Johnson is not just going into a jar, taking out a name and saying, he's going to be my new GM because I want him to be. There is going to be a very long process where the interviews are going to happen. The 33rd team is going to come in with their recommendation of names and then with their final recommendation of who they should be the owner. But at the end of the day, Woody Johnson has to sign off on it. Now, the expectation is the fact that he hired this consulting firm, he will take those recommendations to heart. So if the 33rd team really, really likes Horowitz from Baltimore and they love the process and he gets along well with Woody Johnson, then Woody Johnson most likely is going to sign that contract. But at the end of the day, it's still his decision.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jay Quest doesn't have a membership, but he can super chat. He writes, Happy Thanksgiving, Jake. Jay Quest, Happy Thanksgiving to you and the Jay Quest family, and to all the Asmaniacs out there. Nick, happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Always love when you join us every week. And, man, is it always fun to chop it up with you, despite how bad the season has gone.
Listen, there's always the light at the end tunnel. Eventually, this is going to end. They're not going to – the world's not going to end before the Jets have a winning season. It's not going to happen. I'm putting it down in writing. That's what's going to happen. They're going to be able to find – a winning season. This is going to be turned around. It's just a matter of finding the right people in place.
Nick, enjoy Applebee's tonight and Thanksgiving tomorrow.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Nick Faria, read his work, Athlon Sports. Follow him on Twitter. Does a great job covering the Jets. This show's available in podcast form. Another reminder, Apple or Spotify, just search Jake Asman Show. Subscribe right wherever you get your podcast. Leave a 5-star review as well. That helps us grow in audio form. Hamburger says, bring on some new callers. Don't be afraid. Let's go. I'll stay on for a little while. Right now, though, there's no one on hold. So I will end the show if people don't want to chop it up. Let's see. Barney says 6-0, finish the season out. Screw the draft. If you told me the Jets could go 6-0 down the stretch, I'd sign for it. Do I think that happens? No. I think the Jets lose Sunday. You can't pick the Jets coming off a bye. You can't do it. There's no evidence to support they're going to win Sunday. Nothing. Now, do I want them to win? Yeah. Am I going to be that upset if they lose? No. You can't. How could you be? Let's see. Tom A says a steak cut in the shape of a turkey is probably the way to go. That's an interesting thought, Tom. I've always been a steak guy over turkey. I think turkey is beyond overrated. Once again, if the Pilgrims knew any better, they would have chose steak too. They just didn't. Micro Fox says 9-7 goes to the playoffs. It'd be 9-8 because there's 17 games, but I don't even think if the Jets ran the table, they'd get in because they would lose tiebreakers to so many teams now. John says, Jake, favorite Thanksgiving side. We'll do a little Ask Me Anything right now instead. That's what you got to do when the team's 3-8, I suppose, coming off a bye week where not much going on. Covered all the stories, I guess. Favorite Thanksgiving side. It's a tough one. I always love the sweet potatoes, but I also love a good roll. Cream spinach I'm on board with. Those will probably be my top 3. I feel like I'm missing one obvious one. Favorite Thanksgiving side. What am I missing? I think I hit the big ones, though. We used to do a segment on the radio. We would do a Thanksgiving food draft, me and my co-host. People like stuff. I was never a stuffing guy. Or green bean casserole. That wasn't my thing. According to Connor Long, whose YouTube show I will be a guest on today at 2 o'clock, so everyone tune in to Connor's show. If the Jets run the table, they have a 58% chance of being a playoff team. I just don't see it. I don't see it. Jared says, Jake, would you give up one of your fingers for a Jets Super Bowl? Probably. Yeah, I probably would. One of my pinky fingers. My non-dominant hand, so my left hand. Kyle writes in with a super chat. Filet or lobster tail, prime rib is butt. I appreciate you trying to filter yourself. I can't have lobster because unfortunately I have a shellfish allergy. I'm sure it's very good. I do like filet. But my favorite type of steak is a ribeye. Let's see. Main event, mac and cheese is the GOAT. Yeah, Matt, look, you want to tell me you want to go with mac and cheese as your side? I respect it. I like mac and cheese a lot, so I'm good with that. Dan wants my thoughts on Juan Soto. I still think the Yankees keep him. I felt that way from the beginning, but, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I'll be very disappointed if they don't keep him. You know, that said, there's no reason for the Mets to not have by far the best offer. If it's truly about the money, then he should be a Met. But I really do believe if the Yankees can get somewhere close, there's enough of a number there where Soto would take a little less like Judge did to stay a Yankee. I just believe he wants to be a Yankee. That's just my feel. Scott Foster writes in, my favorite Thanksgiving side is a Cowboy loss. Fair. But I'm rooting for the Cowboys this week. Playing the Giants. Connor writes in, Nets greater than Knicks. Now, Connor, I like you, and I'm going on your show today. But be careful, all right? If I didn't like you, I would probably do this to you.
I'm going to stick my whole fist up your ass.
I actually would not do that, but that guy in the clip would. Jquest says canned cranberries. I've never been a cranberry guy. Gator says, don't let Juan Soto go to the Red Sox. Boston doesn't spend money. There's no way. They're just in it to try and drive up the price on the Yankees. That's why they're in it. How about the Dodgers getting Snell last night, though? Ridiculous. Mo writes in, no Bobby calling today. He's not on hold. I can only go to the callers that are on hold. Mike D's Nuts is a mashed potato guy. I respect it. Boomtown writes in, Jake, you get a chance to erase traditional Thanksgiving Day food. What is your new Thanksgiving table filled with? What do you guys do up in Canada for Thanksgiving, Boom, huh? The Pilgrims went to Canada, too. You guys don't have a Thanksgiving up there? What would I do for Thanksgiving if I could have anything? We would definitely be having steak. We'd have some Chipotle bowls for all. We'd have some Raising Cane chicken tenders served as well. It'd be wild, all right? Be a Thanksgiving unlike anything else. Steven writes in, OG Ananobi. Amen. Boomtown says, same as you guys. We did ours last month. All right. So you guys do Thanksgiving a month earlier in Canada? NY Jets Man Cave says, we'll probably make Gino look like Joe Montana on Sunday. Yeah, I mean, would it surprise me? No. The Jets defense stinks. I mean, come on now. Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, the Jets have lost to each one of their former quarterbacks so far this year. They lost to Darnold in London, and they lost to Flacco on the Colts, even though he didn't play. I guess technically that counts. Alan says, Jake, you need to get Todd Graves on the show as much as you love Canes. I've actually tried to get him on the show when I was in Houston, Alan, because I wanted to get Canes as a sponsor. So I was trying to butter Graves up. I get him on the radio and then do the old reach around and get him on the YouTube channel, but it was not successful. We couldn't get him. These people wouldn't get back to us. But Raising Cane's is my number one fast food place. I love it. Cactus writes in, how about the criminal Dodgers throwing 185 at Snell? And they deferred some of it, too, which should not be allowed. The fact that Manfred allowed that Ohtani contract is a disgrace. It's a disgrace. It's embarrassing. Rob V, New York strip or filet? I'm going with the New York strip. I am. I like filet, but I still love a good New York strip, which I had for dinner the other night. Alan says the rumor of Arenado and Donovan to the Yankees is interesting. Possible Soto plan B, maybe. Arenado, I don't know. He's kind of on the downside. I don't know if I would make that move. I would try and trade for Cody Bellinger and play him at first base, though, from the Yankees. That's a move I would do. I think that would make a lot of sense. Main event, my hatred for the Dodgers is growing. I mean, look, they're doing what the 90s Yankees did, right? You win a championship, you keep adding. Yankees had the best team ever in 98. They then go add Roger Clemens in 99. You know? But the way they've structured the deals is how they're able to get away with all this, which I think is ridiculous. D-Rob, is Tyrod likely our starting quarterback next year? If I had to guess now, I'd say yes, but I'm not overly confident in that answer. So much can change. New regime's coming in. Boomtown says, only a few days left in the month. Get those calls in. No one's on hold right now. But I didn't want to end the show after just an hour. I wanted to give you guys more of a show. We got people traveling today. I want to make sure for those not watching live, you get a nice long show right now. And then 3:30, Brandon Pockers from Jet X Factor will join us. We haven't had Brandon on in a while, so it'll be good to get him on. J-Quest says, I think the Jets will rebound quicker than we think. This team's 4 plays away from being 7-4. It's not crazy. It's a year-to-year league. Every year we see teams that suck that become relevant besides the Jets. They're due. I mean, this year, the teams that sucked last year that are good this year are Denver and the Chargers. The Jets can't be that team next year with better coaching. I'm not saying they're a Super Bowl contender next year. That I don't see. But they could play meaningful games late in the year and have a chance to make the playoffs. I don't think that's crazy. A couple things go their way this year, as bad as it's been. That's still the case. Super chat from RJ. RJ, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for the super chat. Would you never go another Jets game again if it means they go 9 wins minimum every year, Joe Namath guaranteed? Yeah. I would. I'd give up going to a Jet game for the rest of my life if you guaranteed me a 9-win season every year for the rest of my life. Yeah, 100%. That'd be great for what I do for a living. If the Jets are relevant, 9 wins means you're in the mix every year to, at the bare minimum, be a playoff team. You're the Steelers every year, right? 9-8 means you have a winning year every year because 17 games you're 9-8. 100%. I think every Jet fan would sign up for that. Peter says, Jake, you can come to my house for Thanksgiving. Thank you, Peter. I appreciate the offer. Mike D's Nuts wants to know, Jake, you ever had Wagyu? I know it's Wagyu, but I said Wagyu on the radio once, and it was very funny. A little Wagyu, right? It's Wagyu. Or did I just confuse myself with what I thought I said on the radio and that it's not? I don't know anymore. But yes, I have, Mike. Knob says, if Dan Campbell could turn the Lions into a winner overnight, anything's possible. Well, it wasn't overnight, but it took 2 years, right? They were 8-9 his first year. They started 1-5. There were talks about, are they going to fire him? Which I don't think was ever going to happen in his first year. But they turned it around. Remember, they went on that huge winning streak. They beat Rodgers in Green Bay in his last game there, knock him out of the playoffs. And last year, they win 12 games, go to the NFC title game. This year, they're the Super Bowl favorites. So it can be done. Feels unlikely, but I promise you it can be done. Reese writes in, if the Yankees lose Soto, would you sign Alonso? I would not. I would not. I'd rather spend resources elsewhere than a first baseman that's over 30. Dan writes in, Jake, Jets championship or one night with Sidney Sweeney? Well, let's logically break this down, right? I think it's a very easy answer to this question. All right. Our Jets championship would last a lifetime. A night with Sidney Sweeney, for me personally, We're lucky if it lasts 2 minutes.
I like good-looking chicks in that family. Wow.
Bobby.
Oh, yeah, baby. Things are about to get crazy here on the Jake Asman Show.
Calm your freaky down.
Sometimes we try, but that freaky just take us over.
Give him some of your loving voice.
Oh, yeah, hide them kids.
Again, keep your damn freaky down.
Too sexy.
you gotta chill, man. Also, if we're being honest, 2 minutes is probably generous. Anyway, more of your calls right now after that one. Let's say hello to Adam, who's up next on the show. Hello, Adam.
Calls right now after that one. Let's say hello to Adam.
Hello, Adam.
Hello, Adam. Right
You might want to turn off. Oh, God, here we go. Adam, you look like someone who's a nice guy. When you call in, it's like calling the radio. You got to turn the radio down, turn the YouTube down, and only use StreamYard. All right? And then we'll get you on. All right. Anyway. Boomtown writes in, but what a 2 minutes. Look, it'd probably be the greatest 2 minutes ever. You're not wrong. But a Jet championship would last a lifetime, all right? Alan writes in, what is the fascination with Sydney Sweeney? I'm sorry, don't see it. Ladies and gentlemen, Alan, we appreciate your contributions to the show, but your day is done.
Now look what you've done, Alan. No more protection from the Asmaniacs. Had to pull you out of the chat and cast you down with the sodomites. Some time in here will feel like you've been run over by the lane train. You understand me? You catch my drift? Give him another 24 hours to think about it.
He's lucky I didn't ban him for that one. We just put him in the hole for 24 hours. Ladies and gentlemen, let's say hello to Adam. Hello, Adam.
Hey, what's up, Jake?
There you go, Adam. You figured out how to do it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I'm just calling in. Jay Quest wanted me to call in. He was asking my opinion on Coach. My opinion is we need to go get John Gruden. Why wouldn't we? He fits everything we want. An offensive coach, has experience, long experience, even a Super Bowl title with the Bucs in the early 2000s. People say that wasn't his team, that was Dungy's team, whatever. What the case is, he still coached them. He still had the discipline. That's a lot of things this team needs.
Mm-hmm.
We're lacking discipline. So that's my coach for my coaching candidate, John Gruden. I also asked Jay Quest to give me a second question. He did not. He kind of got off. So hopefully Jay Quest sees this on his travels wherever he is. Happy Thanksgiving to him and his family and all the Asmaniacs. But yeah, I think we need to go get John Gruden. Also, I am not Alan's burner account. I think he also said that earlier in the live stream or whatever it was. This is not Alan's burner account. If Alan wants to get on here and kind of talk face to face, I'm cool with that because I think Alan is honestly the best Tasmaniac. So that is what it is. Also, I wouldn't extend Sauce. Even after next year.
Yet. I wouldn't pay him off this year.
Even after next year, I wouldn't. I would give him next year, but I still wouldn't extend him. I would trade him.
Well, what if he has an all-pro season next year? Then it's like, why would you trade him?
What was that?
What if he goes out there and is once again an all-pro level player like he was his first 2 years? You wouldn't pay him then?
No, I would still trade him for a first-round pick. Because
yeah,
why? What are we looking at? So
if
we bring
where are you finding a better player in the first round than a player who would have been an all-pro in 3 of his first 4 years in the NFL?
I understand that, but it's not about where we find that. It's about the timeline. Because I don't want Aaron Rodgers back either. I don't think we should bring him back. I think we should start Tyrod next year, have that for a bridge quarterback. I'm also not sold on any of these quarterbacks coming into the draft this year. The Shador Sanders,
right? But
Jalen
by
Milroe.
Your own logic there, Adam, say Sauce Gardner is an all-pro next season again, right?
Mm-hmm.
You said you want to start a bridge quarterback next year, right? Meaning you would draft a quarterback in the first round in what, 2026?
Yes.
Right.
Or
okay.
2027 or 2027.
Right. Well,
preferably 2026.
Right. Well, you want to you would hope it's 2026. You don't want a bridge.
Right.
A bridge is for a year, not 2 years. So
Yeah, exactly.
So by your logic, then, if you're starting a rookie quarterback where you're not paying a lot of money, that's when you stack the roster around that quarterback. That's what the Jets did with Sanchez.
But do you really think Sauce is worth that top tier corner money? Because I don't. I did up until this year.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. We're talking about the scenario where he reverts back to what he's been the last 2 years. This year being an outlier. I think Sauce is still a very good player and will be good again next year.
And who's to say once you give him that money, he doesn't revert back to this year where he can't. He's never been able to tackle. When was the last time he got an interception? His rookie year.
Yeah, but he didn't get an interception last year.
The coverage
Adam,
part, and
he was an All-Pro last year without getting an interception.
Yeah, so he's coverage corner. That's not Revis money. That's not Pat Surtain money. That's not any Joey Porter Jr. money. Like that. That's not. I'm not paying that for a coverage corner. I want a shutdown corner.
Surtain to me has proven he's the best in the league. But some of the other names you mentioned, Sauce has been better than those guys until this year.
You think Sauce was better than Revis? Because Revis was one of the names
I'm not talking. You're talking to the wrong guy on Revis. There's no one a bigger Revis defender than me. Revis is the best I've ever seen at any position. He's amazing.
But
Sauce doesn't need to be compared to Revis to still be worth extending him.
But that's what we do as Jets fans because we're so
okay. Well, stop doing that then, and look at Sauce compared to his contemporaries that are playing the same position in him right now. If Sauce Gardner, Adam, has an All-Pro season a year from now, that'd be 3 times in 4 years. I would extend him, especially by your logic that you want a bridge into a rookie quarterback who you wouldn't be paying a lot of money. That's when you stack the team around that rookie who's on a rookie contract.
But why wouldn't we trade him? At that point, I get it. The rookie quarterback is not making much money, but why not trade him?
Because he's good. He can help you win. Sauce Gardner the last 2 years, the big reason why this defense was top 3 in the league.
Did he help us win last year?
Yeah, he did.
7 games. Is he helping us win this year?
Is Sauce Gardner, Zach Wilson, Tim Boyle, Trevor Siemian, and Nate Hackett calling the plays?
I got it.
Sauce Gardner, the reason why the offense was starting second a year ago?
We looked a lot better last year than we did this year.
Because
we don't have that
the defense was better last year, Adam.
I get that.
Sauce was having a much better year last year.
Sauce took a step back. Why are we paying him $100 million?
Adam, by your logic, he would not be what he is this year, next year. That's why I asked you if Sauce goes back to being what he was his first 2 years. Why would you trade him at that point? It doesn't make sense. If you tell me, Adam, Sauce goes out there next year, if you tell me, Adam, Sauce goes out there next year and has another underwhelming season, then yes, I wouldn't extend him. I probably would look to maybe trade him or let him play out on his 5th-year option. That's what we're talking about here.
To me, that doesn't make sense, Jake, because why would you look to trade him after a second down year? If he showed us one down year and then rebounds and gets back up, yes, you're right. I'm going to look to trade him at that point because I didn't see him. He showed me what he really is. When somebody shows you what they really are, believe them.
Okay, well, I disagree with you.
Bouncing back up.
Hold on. Your logic doesn't make sense. If someone shows you what they really are, believe them. Okay, I believe Sauce Gardner is much better than what we've seen this year. Why? Because he was the best corner in football his first 2 years in the NFL.
Was he able to tackle his first 2 years?
It wasn't that big of a liability like it's been this year.
But we can't talk about that.
Was Deion Sanders a great tackler?
No, but Deion Sanders was getting picks.
I understand that, but also Sauce Gardner, let's not act like because he doesn't have interceptions, he still didn't have tremendous value to the Jets the first 2 years.
No, which I agree, he did. But that's why.
So he's having a down year. You realize he's still graded out as one of the best cover corners in the league this year. Still.
This year?
Yes. Let me see if I have the chart saved because I do have a chart for this.
Please.
I'll try and find it for you.
Screen on behind you, so I'm kind of watching myself on 2 levels. It's weird, but
Adam, just say you don't like Sauce. It would be a lot easier.
No. That's the problem. I love Sauce. Sauce is my favorite Jet.
So why this year? Why would you trade him if he goes back to being an All-Pro with a better coaching staff next year?
Because I don't trust him.
But you just said he's your favorite player.
Sauce, but I don't trust him. What
do you mean you don't trust him?
What is he doing for us? Look at all the missed tackles, Jake.
I understand, Adam. He's having a down season, but let's not act like all of a sudden he sucks or has been their biggest problem this year.
No, I'm not saying he's his biggest problem. You're putting words in my mouth now. I'm not acting like he sucks.
Your
I'm
tone
not, this year he does
and
suck.
logic to trade him does not align. You say you want the Jets to have a bridge next year and then have, in all likelihood, a first-round draft pick starting in 2026, right?
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you then pay your best defensive player if he's back to being an all-pro?
If I have a young quarterback, I'd rather go pay a receiver.
You could do both. You could do both. Have you seen the Niners roster with Brock Purdy?
Brock Purdy is about to get paid.
We're not talking about right now, Adam, or next season when he's up for an extension. We're talking about
if we had a Brock Purdy contract, okay.
But that's what you would have. You would have a guy on a rookie contract. He'd make more than Brock Purdy because he was a 7th-round pick. But relatively speaking, a first-round quarterback does not make any significant amount of money relative to the top guys in the league. We're talking about a rookie contract. I think Zach Wilson's rookie contract was $35 million total. You have guys in the league Dak Prescott makes $60 million a season now. That's what we're talking about.
That was a dumb contract by the Cowboys, first of all.
It's okay, so Trevor Lawrence makes $55 million a year. Tua makes $55 million a year. Burrow makes $55 million a year.
Why are we worried about Sauce? Why not go get a better corner? Why not trade a high-value contract, which you're talking about?
Do Sauce Gardners grow on trees? Do you think finding a guy who's a first-team All-Pro his first 2 years, they grow on trees?
I mean, he's not the best corner in his class.
Who is?
Surtain.
Surtain is not in his draft class.
In the air.
Thank you for the time. Good God. Oh, my God. What are we talking about? You want to say Patrick Surtain's the best corner in football? That's fine. That does not mean that Sauce Gardner sucks. Derek Stingley's had a very good year for the Texans. Right? He's in Sauce's draft class. That could have been the example you wanted to use. And my pushback would be, okay, well, you know what? His first 2 years, he couldn't stay on the field and was not as good as Sauce. Oh, my God. What are you talking about, Adam? Your logic doesn't make any sense. Why would you pay Sauce? You'd pay him because by your logic, you'd have the flexibility to pay him. That's what we're talking about. I use the Niners as an example because how have they been able to stack their team? Oh, they're not paying their quarterback any money. How did the Seahawks do it with Russell Wilson? Oh, he wasn't making any money. That's how they're able to pay all the guys they paid on that defense, the Legion of Boom. Come on, man. Coaching matters. The idea that Sauce Gardner just forgot how to play football, could we stop? If you made the argument he's not great again next year, you don't want to extend him, that's a fair perspective. That's a fair point. We'll see what his value would be on the market if you were to shop him. But I said to you, hey, Sauce is an all-pro again next year for the 3rd time in 4 years. And you're saying, yeah, we should trade him. And then you said he's your favorite Jet. How does that make any sense? How'd it work when this franchise traded Revis? How'd that move work? Grass isn't always greener on the other side. Go find another Sauce Gardner. Go find another Darrelle Revis. How'd that work? Oh, D. Milner's here. You're not finding another Sauce Gardner. All right? I mean, this fan base is so stupid at times. Like, this is the same fan base that blindly defended Zach Wilson to the death. Some of you morons out there, you truthers. But Sauce Gardner's having a bad season for his unbelievably high standard he set. And we want to jettison the guy now? Meanwhile, we'll defend actual shit we watched at quarterback? But we're going to get rid of a guy who's been an all-pro his first 2 years in the league? Remember people wanted to run Quinn Williams out of town? How's the year he's having now? Garrett Wilson, same thing. People. The Jets have a lot of problems. Sauce Gardner is very far down on the list. If he goes back to being an all-pro next year, you wouldn't trade him. You'd sign him. And your argument on why you wouldn't sign him because they'd have a rookie, that's why you do sign him, because he's not making any money. God. Happy Thanksgiving, Adam. Great call. Jesus Jerry writes it. Jake, a Jets championship equals 1,000 bats. think I know what this is referencing. Thank you, Jesus. Mike D's Nuts says Adam coaching matters. Yeah, I think it does. If Brian Flores is the Jets head coach next year, how do you think Sauce Gardner is going to play? I bet you he's going to play pretty freaking good. All right. Kyle Clifton says Jets AFC Championship game win or a long weekend with Ana de Armas. Or de Armas. I don't know how to say her name. I'll take the championship game win, Kyle. It lasts forever. A long weekend's great. But an AFC title win? Come on. Easy question. More of your calls right now after that spectacular call from Adam. I love how Adam says, Jake, you don't listen. No, we listen to you, Adam, and there's not a single person on the planet who agrees with you. But thank you for the time. Let's say hello to Connor. He's next. Hey, Connor.
Jake, how you doing?
I'm living the dream, Connor. I'm excited for 2 p.m. today, joining the
There we
Connor
go.
Long Show. It's going to be magical.
I appreciate it, Jake. Yeah, so I wanted to ask you about the current quarterback situation. I know yesterday Ulbrich said that they're riding with Rodgers. They're not shutting him down. I know it was just a few weeks ago where you were on board with keeping Rodgers. Now you kind of want to shift away from that. What are your thoughts? Do you think it's the right decision to keep Rodgers up and running for the remainder of the season?
Yeah.
What do they do with the quarterback? Is Tyrod that bridge guy? Do they set someone I'm intrigued by is Justin Fields. You could possibly sign him. He's a free agent. He's one of those low risk, high reward guys. He has a ton of upside. What do you think they do, and who do they go after in the draft?
So my stance has changed just based on how Rodgers has looked these last couple of games. I'm willing to hold out hope he's healthy post-bye and looks good down the stretch. I want to play him every game if he's healthy. I mean, playing Tyrod Taylor does nothing for me. I want Rodgers to play. I want him to hopefully break Fitzpatrick's touchdown record at the bare minimum so I don't have to see Fitz leading an all-time category. I'd rather have a legit Hall of Famer leading that category. But, I mean, look, who do I want at quarterback if not Tyrod next year? I mean, Justin Fields is an interesting name. I think Jameis Winston would at least be fun. If you could maybe bring him in.
I'd rather Fields, though. I mean, Winston, I think this might be one of those Joe Flacco Cleveland stands where it's for a few weeks. It was just a few years ago where he threw more interceptions than touchdowns in a single season. That was the high of his career. He entered the season as a third-string guy for Cleveland, again, similar to Joe Flacco coming off the couch. So I think it's one of those things there. I like Fields because, he's young, and like I said, he has a ton of upside. But you saw, I don't know if you saw, but Ulbrich, during his media availability today, said Jordan Travis is not progressing the way they expected him to, and he's not going to get activated from the non-football injury reserve list.
Yeah, I've been saying it all year. I was told he was going to be redshirted, so that's no surprise.
So what do you think they do with him? Is he that third-string guy next year who we see a lot of in the preseason? You kind of let, whether it's Fields, Tyrod, Winston, one of those guys battle it out with the rookie, whether it's Cam, Shadur, Milroe, and then Travis is kind of the third string. What does his role look like next season?
I could see him competing for one of the backup jobs, and if he lights the world on fire like Russell Wilson once upon did or Dak did out of nowhere, like you've seen it, but he would have to play great. There's no way to know what he is. No one's ever seen him play, so we'll see what he is next year when he gets a chance. I would still, if there's a quarterback they like, I'd still draft the quarterback either in round 1 or trade back into round 1 or early round 2.
Yeah, I mean, he's someone who had a ton of success at FSU. He was going to be a first, second-round pick before he suffered that brutal leg injury. So, he's shown he has potential. I think he has, pretty high ceiling, a lot of upside there, kind of just the way he plays. And one more thing, the Jets, they signed Bam Knight to their practice squad yesterday. Brees, he has a knee injury. Ulbrich said it's unclear if he's good to go on Sunday. Can we see Bam Knight on Sunday? I remember watching him a few years ago with Mike White in that Bears game, and he really impressed me the way he played. That was a fun game, that Bears game when the Jets won against.
I don't think you'd see him this week. No, that was Mike White. That Bears game. Yeah. I don't think he'd play. I think they would. I mean, Izzy Abanikanda might be active for the first time this year.
Oh, yeah. Abanaconda's another interesting one. Isaiah Davis, we could see him getting
That's
some
who
touches.
You would see, though. You would see Allen and Davis with Izzy as the third running back.
Yeah, that's true. Well, who would you rather see take the majority of the load on Sunday if Brees is gone? Allen and Davis. Really?
I mean, both of them, but I want Braylon Allen to get some touches.
I like Braylon in short yardage situations, but on that, those 1st and 10, 2nd and 8 plays, I want to see more of Isaiah Davis. Again, I think he's someone who just hasn't gotten an opportunity this season. We've seen him return kicks, but hasn't gotten any opportunities out of the backfield, and I think he has a lot of potential. But Jake, appreciate you taking my call, and I'll see you at 2 p.m.
Connor Long, everybody. No school today. So that's how he's available. Connor messaged me last night asking if I can come on. I go, what times do you have open? This is what I love about Connor. He goes, I'm off from school tomorrow, so wide open. Love it. I love that. No school. They don't do school on Thanksgiving Eve anymore? I didn't know that. I'm sure a bunch of people just took off all week because their families go down to Florida or whatever. Frank writes in, Jake, if Tyrod's the bridge guy, why wouldn't you play him? Another horrible take. He might be the bridge guy next year, Frank. Not this year. I want Aaron Rodgers to play if he's healthy. I don't think that's a crazy take. If Aaron can play, I want him to play. I don't want to put Tyrod Taylor in games that don't mean anything, and he gets hurt, and that messes up the plan for next year. And guess what? Tyrod Taylor's history tells me there's a chance he gets hurt if he plays. So I'm playing Aaron Rodgers unless Rodgers goes on IR and can't play. That's it. All right, but that's a bad take for me? Okay. I'll play along. Not.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. And may God have mercy on your soul.
I mean, Frank, come back to us. Daniel, super chat, cuts the line. When you're a bad football team for 15 years, you don't let all pro corners walk for unproven first-round picks. God, Adam. Yeah. Why would you trade? Once again, if Sauce is not good again next year, it's a different conversation. But I asked him multiple times just to make sure I understood what Adam was trying to argue. If Sauce goes back to being an all-pro, which he has been his first 2 years in the league, why would you trade him? Adam says, yup, you have bad takes galore right now. Adam, there's not a single person on the planet who agrees. He says, again, you don't listen. Adam, call back in, and you can lay out your take again, and we will sit here, listen to it, and then when you say we don't understand it, you're just not going to accept the L. That's going to be your move. Rather than saying, I am wrong, you're going to sit here and say we don't understand you. So we'll give you one last chance. Call in, articulate your point, Adam. Go ahead. You're on the air. Keep typing, Adam. Keep on typing. I hear myself in the background. Let's go. You're up. You're on the air, baby. Here we go. Mute the YouTube. Talk to me via StreamYard.
You're on the air, baby. Here we go. Mute the YouTube. Talk to me via StreamYard.
God.
Here we go. Mute the YouTube. Talk to me via StreamYard.
Oh, God. Right? I can wait, Jake. It's your show. You can get on here when you want.
Whenever you're ready, Adam.
Okay, then get on screen.
You said no one's listening to you. The floor is yours. There's 775 people watching. Go.
All right. Why would we wait for Sauce to have a second bad year before we trade him? And what do we get in return? A third, a fourth, a fifth round pick? Why would we not let Sauce ball out next year, trade him at his highest value? Whoever in the chat said, oh, well, we got Gary and we got Adams. Adams is gone with Rodgers, hopefully this year, because I don't want Rodgers back. We should start Tyrod, bridge quarterback, let Sauce show his worth, draft or have our fucking rookie in 26? Draft our rookie in 2026? Stockpile assets for 2026? Right? Next year is a lost season, just like this year's already a lost season.
So what does Sauce Gardner have to do with next year?
Why not take not a premium position in the NFL? Why not take a non-premium position and trade it for a premium position? Trade for draft picks.
Wait a second. Did you just say corner is not a premium position in the NFL?
Not when you can't tackle, no. Not when you cannot tackle, no. When you can't tackle, no, it's not. Because what? The receiver catches a pass on you, right? And they break a tackle and slip it for a big play, right? So I'm not saying Sauce can't cover, but Sauce can't tackle.
Your logic. This is somehow you've provided an even worse call.
Logic? What's my logic?
You now have changed the conversation. Is Sauce Gardner an all-pro corner next year? Yes or no?
Do I think he will be?
No, but
next year, no, I don't think he will be.
Okay.
I think he will be a serviceable corner. I think he will be. I don't know how I'm more of an NBA guy.
Stop right there, Adam. Stop right there. Because your original point, I asked you multiple times, and you were too stupid to realize what you were saying. Was
don't insult me.
Sauce Gardner will be an all-pro next year. I said that to you. I said, and you said yes. And then I said, and you would still trade him if he's a first-team all-pro next year.
Going off of your assumption of that, I will agree. Okay, you're assuming he's an all-pro. Yes. Okay, let's go off of that.
I'm not assuming. You presented that scenario. That was your scenario.
So even if he is an all-pro, yeah, I trade him. I still trade him.
So if he's a first-team,
I get the second, and I build for the future. Because I'm not looking to win now. We're not looking to win now. Not
you want to wait a second. Right? Wait a second, Adam. So next year, you're already saying there's no hope. Sauce is an all-pro in a lost year again, right? This is your logic.
Yeah, it's just like the first 2 years of his career.
And then you would trade him, even though you'd have a rookie starting at quarterback, so you would have plenty of resources to allocate to the rest of the team to help that rookie be in a great situation to try and win, like Mark Sanchez in 2009 and 10.
Yeah, I would trade him and get more picks.
And you think those picks will be anywhere close to the level of player a 3-time first-team All-Pro would be?
If we have a competent GM, yes. Would Joe Douglas? No, because that's the best of Joe Douglas. Like that's the top of the top. But you're acting like
Do you realize how hard it is to draft an all-pro?
Draft pick. You're at 14. Revis was picked at 14. We took Sauce at 4.
Do you realize how hard it is?
At 14 versus Sauce at 4, you're acting like we can't do any better. We can because we did better 10 spots lower.
You're not finding a corner as good as Sauce Gardner in all likelihood in the draft.
We found a Hall of Famer at 14.
In 2007, he's a once-in-a-generation player.
That's what we said about Sauce, right?
Sauce is one of the best corners in the NFL.
Like a generational player, Jake. He's not. He was, but he's not anymore. We can't be tied
No. He's not.
What he did.
Okay, here we go, Adam. Round and round we go. It's Adam talking in circles. Right. He's not this year. But by your own logic, next year he would be, and then you still want to trade him, which makes no sense.
Yes, because at that point, sell at the high point. We're not trying to win next year anyway.
We're not trying to win next year. Why are you giving up on next year and the year after? How do you know?
Because is Tyrod taking us to the Super Bowl?
Okay, but you're talking about 2 years from now, Adam. We're talking about 2026. In your scenario, Tyrod's the bridge. You said yes. And then I said, okay, you're drafting a quarterback that will start in 2026. You then said yes. So then why would you trade Sauce?
Even at that point, because we're not going to a Super Bowl with a second-year quarterback who's only played 1 year. We're still not going. So it's a long fucking rebuild,
What are you
Jake.
talking about? What are you talking about? Mark Sanchez
You want to rebuild overnight. You think everything's overnight. It's not overnight, Jake.
Oh, my God. You are so stupid, Adam. You're done. Goodbye. I gave you way too much time to articulate your point, and you can't do it because you don't have the brain cells, the mental capacity in order to do it. Thank you for the support. I appreciate it. This is not a show for you. Good God. Oh, my God. I mean, Patrick Mahomes in his second year in the league was in the AFC Championship game. Ben Roethlisberger was in the Super Bowl in his second year, won a Super Bowl. Russell Wilson won the Super Bowl in his second year in the league. Mark Sanchez went to the AFC title game in his first 2 years in the league. What are you talking about? I gave you every opportunity. First off, you moved the goalpost on what you were arguing, and then you still couldn't come up with a competent point. You're bringing in 2025 and 2026 and merging the years. What are you talking about? I gave you as much rope as I possibly could there. And that was just horrific. Have you watched the Washington Commanders this year? Or the Texans last year, Adam? If they hit on that quarterback in your scenario in 2026, they could be a very good team. And Sauce would be a big part of that if he's an all-pro again next year. If he's not what he was, if this is now who he is, then yeah, obviously you wouldn't extend him. Or if you were to extend him, he wouldn't be making Surtain money. He'd be making a lot less. And then you'd have to decide, is it worth it? But that's not what you were bringing up. I could actually take your point and turn it into something that makes sense by just talking about the idea of trading Sauce in the right scenario. You weren't doing that. You're telling us he's back to being an all-pro for the third time in 4 years, which I do think has a likelihood of happening next year with better coaching. Because I don't think Sauce just forgot how to play football. I think his confidence is shot. He might be playing through an injury, and the coaching staff sucks. Mike Vrabel, Brian Flores, Aaron Glenn, Rex Ryan, these guys are the coach next year. I bet you Sauce Gardner's back to being what he was. You go out there and you argue for the point of Sauce being an all-pro in 2025, and then you want to trade him just because his value's high. But then I said, okay, well, why would you trade him? Because he'd be a big part of your team. And then you said, well, we're going to be drafting a quarterback, so we're not going to win the Super Bowl anyway. Okay, maybe in year one, but if you extend Sauce in year two, he might be able to help you win a Super Bowl. If that quarterback is the real deal, that's the whole point. And you could pay Sauce because guess what? Your quarterback on a rookie deal wouldn't stop you from extending your best players. That's how these teams get stacked in a salary cap sport. I mean, look at the examples out there. So many teams win with their quarterback on a rookie deal because they're able to stack the roster around that player. That's the whole point. God, I'd rather argue with Gary than Adam. Austrian Jet fan, what are your thoughts on Winston Jr. Bam Knight move? I don't really have any thoughts. I hope Brees plays this week, but I think they signed Bam Knight to the practice squad just to get another guy added. The running backs this week, if Brees doesn't play, would be Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis, and Izzy Abanikanda. Fiore writes in, if this team was well coached, would be a playoff team. You don't trade Sauce, coach him up, and if Rodgers plays well these 6, bring him back. Depends how well he plays, but I'm with you as far as not trading Sauce. Daniel says, Tannenbaum better not interview Adam for GM. God. If Adam called in and said, look, if Sauce goes out there and he's good, but he's not what he was his first 2 years, I think we should trade him. That's a fair, reasonable take. He wasn't saying that. I said, if he's a first-team All-Pro next year, why would you trade him? And then he talked in circles and made no sense. So we wasted too much time on that. Adam says, Jake, you have a short mind. This team isn't winning. And then he acts as if you could just find all-pro corners like it's easy and brings up Revis being a 14th pick. Got news for you, bud. Drafting's really hard. That's how even some of the guys that are the best in the NFL at it, like John Lynch, could draft Trey Lance, or Howie Roseman could take Jalen Reagor 1 pick before Justin Jefferson. It ain't easy. You think you're going to be able to find a corner who's been a 3-time All-Pro through his first 4 years. Adam, thank you for the time.
Yo! Hold up! Time out! Time out! Y'all take a chill. You need to cool that shit out.
I mean, what are we talking about? I just saw another comment before we sent him to Stupid Town that Adam is calling for the Jets to basically gear up for 2028 through 2030. I mean, do you watch football, Adam? Do you? Have you seen some of these teams that have turned it around, like Denver this year, the Chargers, last year, Houston, the Lions? Here's how big of a moron Adam is. So Joe Douglas's best draft class was 2022. The teams that picked in the top 5 that year all have won a playoff game since the Jets made those picks. Jets haven't sniffed 8 wins in a season. Jacksonville won a playoff game. They picked 1 that year. Detroit won 2 playoff games. Favorites to win the Super Bowl this year. They won, obviously, playoff games. Houston won a division last year and won a playoff game. Jets haven't done shit. And the Giants, as bad as they have been, won a playoff game with Daniel Jones 2 years ago. And Adam's trying to tell us about 2028 through 2030. Adam, you are today's moron of the day. Congratulations. Your prize is absolutely nothing, you buffoon. Daniel says Brees and Garrett are gone if you trade Sauce. I mean, the only guy that I would extend after this year for sure is Garrett Wilson. You don't have to do anything with Brees yet. You don't have to do anything with Sauce. There's still 2 years left on Sauce's contract. Brees has 1 year left plus the franchise tag. I would maybe look to extend him just to get ahead of it. Like, you look at what the franchise tag value would be and see if Brees would take that. God. Also, the other thing he said in that argument that was asinine is saying that corners are in a premium position. Buddy. You're bringing up Darrelle Revis. The biggest reason why Rex's defense worked the way it did was because of Darrelle Revis. Moron. More of your calls right now. Philly's next. Hello, Philly.
Yo, bro, that was the most disturbing shit. I've been trying to get into yell at the guy for you so you can like take a hiatus, maybe grab some Hennessy, take a shot for his dumb takes. Because my ears were like, I wanted to bludgeon myself. Like, for some reason, he wants to state that the corner is like not a premier position. Then goes, yo, you know that Hall of Fame gold jacket guy that came on the field during one of the last year's games at home, and we like celebrated him and we hung his jersey on the rafters and he like helped us get the 2 AFC championship games. Oh, and he was a captain. Yeah, that guy. Yeah, we need one of those. That's a fucking cornerstone player.
Well, he also said Sauce was his favorite player, but like, what do you like? How does that make any sense?
Jake, as you were trying to refute, like, just rebuke the guy's stupidity, he goes, I'm more of an NBA guy, which then makes my mind go, wait, hold up. He must think Wembayamas grow off of trees. He must think LeBron's grow off trees. Kobe's grow off trees. Like, dude, you can't just, oh my God, just complete asinine shit. Yeah, that was disturbing to watch. I'm sorry for all of us. I just wanted to make a claim about the searching for a GM and head coach real quick. Last year, Spielman had as finalists Bergonzi, Ian Cunningham, Will McClay, and, Peters got hired. So I feel like he's definitely going to usher in those guys maybe as like the top candidates for the Jets to look at. And the accelerator program, which had Flores. I really think Flores is going to be the first like guy from a coordinator's position as a defensive coordinator. He's going to be the first one interviewed, I think, to be honest with you. And bringing him back here to beat the crap out of the rest of the East again and beating the Dolphins' ass every year, twice a year would be perfect. Look, I'm fucking with it.
He's learned. I'm sure he's learned from his first stint. I think he'd have a much better grasp on who his OC would be. He's coming from the Vikings, where O'Connell's one of the best offensive guys in the sport. So, and
then really, really quick, I'm sorry. I know that I chewed up our time. QB thing. Like, we're all, Rodgers is, we're not sure, we're not that. All right. That beyond that guy's trading Sauce stupidity. I would, if depending on who comes in, if you get rid of Aaron, the money's, you can allocate to split it between 2 years. I mean, you want to take as many stabs at a QB in the first round, because if you even stick one, whether he performs the year after, bridged, the year of, it's such a cheap contract, that reset. They're going to want that reset. Like, whoever comes in is going to want it either year one or year two of their signing. Whoever is the GM and coach, they need it. You have to have it. So we all have to think they're going to strike within this offseason, in this draft, or the next. Period. End of story. They're not going to wait 2 years.
Once you bring in a new GM and you don't already have a quarterback in place, Philly, like, you basically get 1 or 2 years before you have to draft that guy. Like, very rarely does a GM go multiple years if they don't already have a quarterback in place without taking one in the first round. Like, Joe Shane might not get the chance, but that was because he made the decision to stick with Daniel Jones. Dan writes in, we have Sidney Sweeney, traitor, so you have a chance to draft Snooki. Adam. The only example I could think of a GM having like a lot of time before he had to draft a quarterback was Chris Ballard with the Colts, because he kept trying to go the veteran route every year. But he had Andrew Luck, and that kind of bought him time once Luck surprisingly retired, right? Because they tried to piece it together. They had Brissett for a year. They tried Phillip Rivers. They tried Carson Wentz. Eventually, they had no choice. They went with Anthony Richardson. They had to. When you're a GM and you inherit a team that doesn't already have a franchise quarterback on it, you basically get 2 drafts before you're in a spot where you have to take a quarterback at that point. Ladies and gentlemen, more of your calls right now. Let's get an eyewitness perspective on the Jets. David is up next. What's up, David?
Hi, Jake. I won't take much of your time, and I'm not here to argue with you. On the thing as far as, and I know it's been repetitious the last couple of days with the GM and all that, but like before they hired they hired Tannenbaum and this other guy. I was concerned about Woody, and that's why I was pretty much on board with Rex Ryan. I figure, well, if Woody's making a decision, pick him unless he makes, a worse decision. But now that they hired these people, very interesting, and I think you said it's going to be a long process, but I got complete faith they're going to come up with the right team of people.
I hope so, David. I feel better about the process with 2 respected GMs involved, especially Spielman, who did it last year, than if Woody was just doing it on his own.
And the other thing I'd like to say is, as far as Aaron Rodgers, whatever his faith is going to be, I live down in Clearwater, Florida, and I have tickets for the Miami game, and I know he's starting this week, and he possibly be good, could be hurt, and I don't want him to kill himself, but I'm selfish. I'd love to be able to see, it's going to be great just to see the Jets in general, but to see Aaron Rodgers at the end of his career, or toward the end of his career.
It could be one of his final starts. You never know.
Right. So that's it. I don't want to take much of your time.
David, you're never taking too much of our time. I love the hat, by the way, the Jake Asman snapback or trucker hat you got on. Love it.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up, because I come from the old school where we got baseball caps, and we had to work the bill and put rubber bands around them and all that kind of stuff. So this is my first hat like this, and you know what? It's cool. I like it.
I appreciate it. It looks good on you.
Thank you, sir.
David, great call. Appreciate you as always. David checking in. David Taddeo. Tyrone with a super chat. I do a lot of hiring. Also, I noticed that one that sounds perfect is the first one to get terminated. It's like the lottery luck. Go Jets. I'm confused by this comment here, Tyrone. Can you clarify? I do a lot of hiring. Also, I noticed the one that sounds perfect is okay, so you're saying the candidate you think going in that sounds perfect oftentimes is the one that gets terminated. It's like the lottery luck. Look, the Jets have had like the hire that everyone approves of before, and it hasn't worked. Joe Douglas was thought to be a great hire. So was Robert Saleh. If they hire someone and the fan base is not in love with it right away, that doesn't mean it can't work. Unless it's Adam Gase. We all knew that wasn't going to work. Great call by David there. Ladies and gentlemen, I might regret what I said earlier in the show. After getting into it with Adam, I said I'd rather argue with Gary than Adam. Well, we're going to find out if I'll regret that statement, because look who was called in. SEAL Team 75, assemble.
The Clapping Seals, they're alive and well in the chat.
Gary?
Jake, your wish is my command, my man. You have to argue with me. You got me. Look, I don't really agree with what he was saying, but look, first of all, there's no reason to insult him. I mean, he's a first-time caller. It wasn't a bad guy. I don't think he wasn't saying cornerback isn't a premium position. I think he was saying Sauce isn't a premium cornerback. I think that's what he was saying. Look, I agree with you. Football, you can rebuild. If you hit on quarterback and head coach, you can rebuild in a year. You can. It's not the NBA where you draft Wemby and 4 years later you're good. You can be pretty good. Maybe not a Super Bowl team, but you can be really good. Turn it over year. So when he says rebuild, I don't.
Gary, he was talking about 2028 through 2030.
Yeah, I'm out on that. I don't agree with anything.
It's 2024.
Yeah, I know, right? Like if I said the Nets, right? It's okay. Well, even if you draft Ace or whatever, it's going to be a couple of years till they're good. It doesn't work that way in football. The competitive balance is much closer in football. You can turn it over year. But what he's saying is, if you don't think Sauce is that guy and you don't want to pay him, you might as well trade him, right? Like
That's not what he's saying. That's not what he's saying, though. I gave him every opportunity to make his point. He's not what he was saying. You're saying that, trying to defend him to be that guy. That's not what he was arguing.
All right. Well, I'm taking.
Gary, I'll ask you the same question I asked him, because I think despite our differences, you and I will actually agree on this. If Sauce Gardner goes out there and is a first-team All-Pro in 2025, would you trade him?
No, I wouldn't trade him. I would want to rebuild.
That's what we were talking about. That's it. Don't say he was trying to say this. He was saying he would still trade him. And then I said, why? Well, he goes, well, we're not going to win with him anyway. I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, we're going to have a bridge, or we're going to take a quarterback. And I'm like, well, that's kind of the point. You don't have to make a choice between keeping some of your best players versus, I got to pay my quarterback. You obviously got to keep the quarterback. It's no. You could do multiple things now because your quarterback's on a rookie deal. That's what we were talking about. He could not acknowledge that. See, anything else is just you trying to come up with an argument to make him look not as silly. That's it.
I don't want the guy to look bad. I don't want the guy to call him an idiot, a moron, whatever you call him.
I will look. I apologize to Adam for calling him a moron and an idiot. I lost my bleep. But give me a break. All right. The Jets are 3-8. I do this every day. I can't handle it anymore. All right. I'm losing my mind. I had no choice. I regret calling him an idiot and a moron, but I think his takes were moronic and foolish and stupid. I'm sure he's a nice guy and he's not actually a moron, but his takes were moronic. I don't regret that.
I think Sauce is going to be fine next year. But then the only question becomes is, do you want to, like, if he's a Pro Bowler next year and he's got 3 out of 4 All-Pro, Pro Bowl seasons, All-Pro or Pro Bowl season, he's going to, and rightfully demand certain money. Then the question is, do you want to give that to him? That's a complicated question because he's not as good as Surtain.
No,
but he's going to demand that kind of money.
You know, the cap goes up every year, and you'll see where the roster's at that point. If he's a first-team All-Pro, I always remember, like, people went nuts when Eli was the highest-paid quarterback in football. Every year, like, that's how it works. Next guy
Joe
up.
Flacco was the highest-paid quarterback in the history of football.
So, when Trevor Lawrence signed his deal, he was the highest-paid guy in football. Trevor Lawrence is mid. Like, that's how it works. Like, if Sauce goes out there and has an All-Pro season, you pay him, and you worry about the consequences down the line because you got to pay your own.
The last thing, we were talking about bridge quarterbacks.
Jameis,
Did somebody say Jameis Winston?
It's not the worst idea depending on what their plan is. I mean, you have Tyrod under contract, but if they want someone who's a little younger, who's less injury prone, you could argue Jameis. I don't think it's crazy.
So
I think Tyrod, for what this team needed, made more sense because he's able to take care of the ball. He's mobile enough. Like, I think the scenario for Tyrod is in 3 games, can he go and win 2 of them? I think if you wanted Tyrod to start a full year, he doesn't necessarily make sense because of how often he's injured. You might argue Jameis makes more sense if you're going to start a guy for what could be 10 or 11 games till a rookie's ready, or maybe the whole year. So, like, that's the difference. I think it depends on the role for what the bridge quarterback would be, whether or not, Jameis would maybe make more sense than just keeping Tyrod. I'll give you that.
Tyrod's got a 2-year deal, and so does Winston, right? They both got 2-year deals.
I think Tyrod's got 1 year left on his deal. I don't remember Winston's contract. We'll look it up right now.
I think it was very comparable. I think it was comparable, like $1 million. It was very comparable to Tyrod's.
He signed on. Jameis is on a 1-year deal for $4 million.
He was on a 1-year.
Yes.
Okay. Well, you've got 1 jersey sold. If they sign Winston, I'm buying that jersey. So here's something I was doing on Bobby's show. Best guess. Who do you think starts week 1 at quarterback for the Jets in 2025?
Tyrod Taylor.
I'm on the same boat. Jordan Travis was getting some votes, and there were some other guys, Cam Ward and.
I hope it's Rodgers because that would tell me he probably played pretty well these last 6, but I think it's probably Tyrod.
I agree. All right, Jake. Have a good Thanksgiving, my man.
You too, Gary. Happy Thanksgiving to you and the fam.
Appreciate you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Gary. Forgot to play this.
I'm not going to do the clapping seal impression.
What do you mean?
I do want to, but I'm not going to do it because Gator's going to use it out of context, and then it's going to go viral, and then I'm going to have to look at it forever.
Thank you, Gary. Freddie says Adam lost me when he said corner wasn't a premium position. Yeah, I mean, it's just there were so many things in that argument that made no sense. Adam, call back someday, all right? I'm sure we could agree on something. I'll be back in a couple hours. We got Brandon Pockrass on the show. Hit the like button if you haven't. Join the Patreon if you haven't as well. Patreon.com/Jake Asman Show. Get in on the Discord. It's where all the magic happens, baby. Thank you all for watching. My name is Jake Asman. Hit the wrong button. Ignore that. This has been the Jake Asman Show. Once again, 3:30. We're back. We're better than ever. And it will be a magical time had by all. Enjoy the rest of your Thanksgiving Eve. Happy Thanksgiving to all the Asmaniacs. Go Jets.
Oh, wow.
Oh. For days. Hasn't stopped. Non-stop. She's a Yorkie, but half terrier.
Ladies and gentlemen, joining us right now is someone with the greatest camera quality you will ever see. Robert C. is up next. Hello, Robert.
So I try to pull up your channel on YouTube. What the Jets need to do is win.
Robert, thank you for the call. I don't know if that's your camera, if you're hanging out with Weed the People, if you're in a sauna, but that was great.